I thought we would do Tam O'Shanter this afternoon. Because, good, I'm glad that gets a cheer of approval. That, I guess, is almost certainly Burns' big number, as we would say these days. It's the most popular poem that he wrote, and it's a cracker. I know some of you will have the background to it, but some of you won't, so let me just give you a little bit of background to it, which hopefully will add to your enjoyment when I recite it. He wrote the poem Tam O'Shanter at the request of another writer when he himself, Burns, was already a published writer. He was in his late 20s and he'd been published for about 3 or 4 years before that. And he was approached by another guy who said, look, I'm going to be doing a bit of touring in Scotland. This is a guy who came up from London. And I'm looking for interesting places to see. So Burns said, well, there's quite a lot of interesting places down in my neck of the woods. One in particular is the old haunted church in Alloway. Mm-hmm. So they had a chat about that, and the upshot was that his friend, would put a mention of this in this book that he was going to write about interesting places in Scotland, of the old church, the old kirk in Alloway, if Burns wrote something to go along with it. And that's how the poem came about. So rather than just write about the church, he invents the character of Tam O'Shanter. And he tells us all about this guy who's one of the boys, he's one of the lads, he's always out there having a drink and a good time to himself. He's really a bit of a waster, Tam O'Shanter. His wife is always saying, look, if you don't get a hold of yourself, Tam, you're going to disappear into the River Doon one of these days when you're on your way home in that horse Maggie of yours, and that will be the end of you. And these are all the things that we hear about in the poem. So it starts off, the poem's in 3 sections basically. There's an introduction where we hear about the character of Tam himself, and we hear about what kind of individual he is, how he is less than worthy, wandering off the straight and narrow quite regularly. And then once we've heard about the character of Tam, Burns then goes into the narrative itself, the story of what happened to him when, drunk once again, he was making his way home across the moor in a very, very stormy night, and he comes across this old haunted kirk, which has got a terrible reputation. And lo and behold, it ain't half living up to its reputation, because the joint is jumping. There's all kinds of wizards and bogles and carlins and horrible creatures of all kind having this mad party. He, of course, can't resist having a closer look on his horse, Maggie, and he sees that one particular witch, unlike all the rest, is actually very fair and very beautiful. Now, her name is Nanny, and we hear that a wee bit later on in the poem. But he doesn't know that. Tam O'Shanter doesn't know that. He just sees that she's very scantily dressed, and unlike all the other horrible wizened old creatures, she's really quite beautiful. And in addition to that, she's very attractively dressed, wearing not very much. So he wants to get closer to this, and he's totally captivated by what he sees. He cannot resist calling out to her, but he doesn't know her name, of course, Nanny, and he calls out to her by what he sees she is wearing, which is this very scanty undergarment, a cutty sack, a short undergarment. And that's where that name comes from, that's how it comes about. Which of course has been subsequently used in a number of places as cutty sack whiskey, famous sailing ship, cutty sack, and so forth. So he calls out. At that moment, they all realise that they're being watched by Tam O'Shanter. So the whole place, the whole thing comes to an end, and he has to flee for his life, and he just makes it and no more. And that's the story of Tam O'Shanter. And then right at the end, he gives a kind of morality tale. He turns it round a wee bit, which is very tongue-in-cheek, given the kind of lifestyle that Rabbie had himself. And he says, now look lads, if you don't behave yourself, this just might happen to you as well. So that's Tam O'Shanter, okay? So, and that's the background to it and why I wrote about that. So I'll now give it to you, and we can hear how the tale goes. Just going to have a wee drink of water, just to wet my lips here.
Lovely.
Okay, so Tam O'Shanter by Robert Burns. When Chapman billies leave the street and drouthy neighbours meet, as market days are wearing late and folk begin to tack the gate, whilst we sit boozing at the nappy, getting food and unca happy, we think no of the lang Scots miles, the mosses, the waters, the slaps and stiles that lie between us and our hame. O'er sits our sulky, sullen dame, gathering her brews like a gathering storm, nursing her wrath to keep it warm. This truth fond honest Tam O'Shanter, as he frae air a night did count. All there, where ne'er a tune surpasses for honest men and bonny lasses. Aye, Tam, had thou but been sae wise and ta'en thy ain wife Kate's advice, she told thee weel thou was a skellum, a blethering, blustering, drunken blellum, while frae November to October, on market day, there was no silver. Ilka melder with the miller, thou sat, as long as thou had siller. For every nag was got a shoe on, the smith and thee got roaring full on. That at the Lord's house, even on a Sunday, thou drank, we kept in June, till Monday. She prophesied that late or soon thou would be found deep drowned in Doon, or catched wi' warlocks in the muck by Alloway's old haunted kirk. Gentle dames, it gars me greet, to think how mony counsels sweet, how mony lengthened sage advices the husband through the wife despises. But to our tale. A market night, Tam had got planted on right, fast by an ingle blazing finely, with reaming swots that drank divinely. And at his elbow, Suitor Johnny, his ancient, trusty, drouthy crony. Tam loved him, a very brother. They'd been food for weeks together. Now the night drave on with sangs and clatter, and aye the ale grew even better. The landlady and Tam grew gracious, with favours, secret, sweet and precious. Suitor told these queerest stories, the landlord's laugh a ready chorus. That storm without might rear and rustle. Tam didn't mind the storm whistle. Care, mad to see a man sae happy, he had drowned himself among the nappy. As bees flee hame with lades of treasure, the minutes winged their way with pleasure. Kings may be blessed, Tam was glorious, o'er all the ills of life victorious. But pleasures are like poppies spread. You seize the flower, the bloom is shed. Or like the snowfall in the river, a moment white then melts forever. Or like the borealis race that flit if you can point their place, or the rainbow's lovely form, a vanishing amid the storm. Nae man can tether time or tide. The hour approaches, Tam on ride. That hour of night's dark arch, the key stain. That dreary hour he mounts his beast in, and sick a night to tack the road in, as ne'er poor sinner was abroad in. The wind blew as 'twas blowing its last. The rattling showers rose in the blast. The speedy gleams the darkness swallowed. Loud, deep, lang, that thunder bellowed. That night a child might understand. The deil had business on his hand. Well mounted on his grey mare, Meg, never better lifted leg, Tam skelpit on through dump and mire, despising wind and rain and fire. So was hodding fast his skin blue bonnet, crooning out some old Scots sonnet, whilst glowering round with prudent cares, lest bowls catch him unawares, Kirk Alloway was drawing nigh, where ghasts and howlets nightly cry. Now, by this time he was crossed the ford, where in the snow the Chapman stood, past the birks and the meikle stane, where drunken Charlie brak his neck bane, through the whins and by the cairn, where the hunters fun the murdered bairn, and round the thorn aboon the well, where Mungo's mother hanged hersel. Before him, doom pours all its floods. The doubling storm rolls through the woods. The lightnings flash from pole to pole. Near and more near the thunders roll. When, glimmering through the groaning trees, Kirk Alloway seemed in a blaze. Through ilka bore the beams were glancing, and loud resounded mirth and dancing. Ho, ho, inspiring bold John Barleycorn. What wonders thou couldst make us scorn. With tippenny, we fear nae evil. With Ushkaby, we'll face the devil. Aye, the swat sereened in Dammy's noddle. Fair play, he cared nae deals a bottle. But Maggie stood right sair astonished, until by heel and hand admonished, she ventured forward in the light, and thou, Tam, saw an ugly sight. Warlocks and witches in a dance. Nay, Cotillon, Brent new frae France. Oh, hornpipes, jigs, strathspeys and reels put life and metal in their heels. A winnock bunker in the east. There sat old Nick, in shape of beast. A towsy tyke, black, grim, large. To gie them music was his charge. He screwed the pipes and gat them skirl, till roof and rafters all did dirl. Coffins stood round, like open presses, that showed the dead in their last dresses, and by some devilish cantrap's light, each in its cold hand held a light, by which our heroic Tam was able to see upon the really tale a murderer's banes and gibbet ends, twa span lying wee unchristened bairns, a thief you cutted frae a right way's last gasp his gap did gape, 5 tomahawks with blood red rusted, 5 scimitars with murder crusted, a garter a babe had strangled, a knife a father's throat had mangled, whom his ain son o' life bereft, the grey hairs yet stacked to the heft. 3 lawyers' tongues turned inside out with lies, seemed like a beggar's clout. 3 priests' hearts rotten, black as muck, with stinking vial at every nook. As Tammy glowered, amazed and curious, the mirth and fun grew fast and furious. The piper loud and louder blew, the dancers fast and faster flew. They reeled, they set, they crossed, they cleeked, till ilka Carolyn slacked and reeked, and coosed her duties to the wark, and linked upon him in her sack. Tam! Had they been queens, all plump and strapping in their teens, their sacks instead of creasy flannin been snow white 1700 linen. These breeks of mine, my only pair, that once were plush with good blue hair, I would have cast them off my hurties for a blink of they bonny bodies. But, withered beldams, old and droll, rigwoody hags with spina fall, jumping and louping with a crummock a one or Tam didn't turn his stomach. But Tam ken'd what was what. Tam ken'd what was what fae brawly. There was a winsome lass and boy that night enlisted in the corps. Now, her cutty sark, o' Paisley Harold, that was a lassie she had worn. In longitude, though sorely scanty, it was her best, and she was vaunty. Little kenned her reverend granny that sack she coughed for her granny with £2 Scots, was all her riches, would ever have graced a dance of witches. But here, my muse her wing moncur, such flights are far beyond her power to sing her nanny lap and flang. A supple jade she was, and strang, and how Tam stood, like ane bewitched. He thought his very e'en enriched. Even Satan fidgeted and flew fae fain, and hunched and blew wi' might and main, till first a caper, sen another, Tam tint his reason altogether, and roars out, "Well done, Cutty Sark!" In an instant all was dark,
Scarcely had he Maggie rallied, when out the hellish legion sallied, as bees buzz out wi' angry fight, when plundering herds assail their dyke, as eager runs the market crowd, when "Catch the thief!" resounds aloud. So Maggie ran, and witches followed, with mony an eldritch screech and hollow. Aye, Tam, Tam, thou'll get thy fairin', in hell they'll roast thee like a herring. In vain thy Kate awaits thy coming, Kate soon will be a woeful woman. Now, do thy speedy utmost, Meg, and win the key stain of the brig. There at then thy tail may toss, for a running stream they darena cross. But ere the key stain she could make, the faint of tail she had to shake, for Nanny, far before the rest, hard on noble Maggie pressed, and flew at Tam with furious ettle. But little was she Maggie's mettle, a leap brought off her master hale, but left behind her ain grey tail. The carlin clout her by the rump, and left poor Maggie scarce a stump. Oh. Now, wha this tale of truth shall read. Ilk man and mother's son, take heed. Whene'er to drink you are inclined, or cutty sacks run in your mind, think you may buy your joys o'er dear. Remember Tam O'Shanter's mare,